I thought I'd kick this Pixel 7a review off with a little 4K 60p recording sample. At $499, you're getting quite the deal when it comes to the camera on the Google Pixel 7a. Now the audio is coming directly from the phone. I like to test these things the way they are right out of the box. We don't need to add attachments. We need to check out the phone itself. I also do have the active study mode on. Basically the EIS and the stabilization is on, all that good stuff. And you can kind of see, it does very well here. So that's the Google Pixel 7a. Let's get into this review. Google Pixel 7a, Google's 2023 A-line device upgrading over the Pixel 6a. Phone has a 6.1-inch smooth OLED display at 90 Hz, and it does get pretty bright, but not the brightest out there. A 64 megapixel plus 13 megapixel ultra wide camera on board, with also having night sight along with having real tone and magic eraser. The phone has a Tensor G2 chip, Titan M2 security, and 8 gigabytes of RAM will dominate this device. We do have a pretty sizable 4385 milliamp hour battery in here, and Google is claiming up to 3 days with extreme battery saving modes, which I probably will not be using, but definitely you have some pretty solid battery life. That's a pretty large battery for this phone. So those are the key specifications of the Google Pixel 7a, but are they enough to justify picking this phone up for around $499? Well, welcome to my honest review. I'm going to tell you everything I think about this phone in this video, and by the end of this video, you'll know if this is the device for you. So if you decide to pick this phone up, it's going for pretty much $499 at pretty much all places you can buy. You can buy it at, Amazon, you can buy it at Google Store, you can buy it at the Best Buy, you can buy it at AT&T, Verizon. It's around $500, just put it that way. I do feel like this phone will get discounted to like $399 eventually, on certain, sales events and stuff like that. So if you want to wait out, you'll probably get a better deal. It's going to be a short-lived, limited time, but I'm sure there's going to be deals on this. Comes with a SIM card tool and some warranty guides in here. You do have yourself a USB 2 to USB 3 adapter cable, and it does come with a USB-C to USB-C cable in the box. There is no charging, charger in here, so you have to buy your own charging brick. But this does support up to 20 watts of fast charging. That's not the fastest out there, but again, this is the entry-level Pixel device. It's not the highest end. Now, you'll also notice that you do have yourself a SIM card tray here on the right, so they didn't go full eSIM on this one. You do have yourself antenna band right there. There is an antenna band at the top right there, and you'll see a microphone hole right there. If we flip it over to the right side, we're going to find ourselves a power button and a volume rocker, and these are in pretty good locations. I have to say, they're pretty easy to reach on here. And one thing to notice about the Google Pixel 7a is that we do have a 9mm thickness, so it's pretty thick compared to some other phones out there, so definitely keep that in mind. Not the thinnest phone out there, but it's housing that battery. And I actually like that this is a little thicker because it does give you a nice grip on the phone. It also does have a rectangular design, so it's definitely like a rectangle in your hand. If you're not into, square looking devices, you probably won't like this. But at the same time, this phone does have a little bit of a curve here on the edge. Nothing too drastic, but definitely doesn't feel too sharp in the hand. And if you do throw this in a case, it definitely gets a little bit thicker here on the Google Pixel 7a, but if you get a thinner clear case, something like this, it won't be too bad. Now you can get this in a sea color, a snow color, and an exclusive coral color option on the Google Store. Now the one I got here is the charcoal colorway. And one thing I really like about this is that this camera bar up here definitely matches the Pixel 7 and 7 Pro. You do have yourself a flash right there. And this back is a plastic material. So if you do care about having glass in the back, you don't get that here. But you do get yourself a wireless charging capability, which is pretty surprising for a plastic phone. And you'll find yourself that recycled aluminum on the edges does feel quite premium. So overall, when I first picked this up, I don't feel like it felt anywhere near as premium as the Pixel 7 Pro, but it's not trying to be that. The bezels on this device have definitely made me second guess this device a little bit because they do look a little bit thick. But at the same time, I thought about it and I'm like, you know what? It doesn't really matter because of the price of this phone. But keep in mind, there are phones out there that probably have a little bit more premium looking designs at this price point. The Pixel still stands on its own as its own unique look, which I do really like. I like the fact that you're getting a very unique looking phone, you know, that definitely screams it's a Google device. And it definitely stands out, even though it still has that punch hole, which kind of reminds you of all Android phones on the front. But still, you can tell, you're starting to be able to tell. You know, Google has definitely formed their own identity as their own phone brand. And you could definitely start to tell that person's using a Pixel, especially if you see it from the rear with that camera bar for sure. Now the thing about this phone is you would think because it's plastic and aluminum, it's not stainless steel, it's not glass rear, it would be much lighter than those devices, but it's not. This phone is 193 grams, so it does have substantial weight to it. You know, for this size, 193 grams is kind of heavy, so you'll feel it in here, but that's mostly because that battery, and of course this aluminum is not the thinnest. This phone just has a thicker, heavier feel to it. Kind of reminds me of something like the iPhone XR, iPhone 11, those kind of weight phones. If you ever held one of those, pretty similar to that. And again, this phone does have IP67 dust and water resistance, so it's not going to be your high-end IP68. So keep that in mind. There are a couple of sacrifices here. Switching gears over to the display. Now, what do I think about this display? I could tell you right away that I definitely like it. I don't love it though, and I can't love it for one reason. It doesn't get bright enough. Now on camera, I'm indoors, I'm in the studio, controlled environment, it's fine. Outdoors, it's just not bright enough, and even during the day, it's so dim at like 50%. This phone is a big sacrifice when it comes to brightness of display. The Poco F5, the Poco F5 Pro, and even, you know, the Samsung A series is brighter than this phone. So you definitely got to crank it up to get that brightness. And that really makes me think that my battery is not going to be quite as good as it could be because I got to crank that brightness up, which in effect drains more battery. Now, do keep in mind though that this phone does have a really smooth panel, which I do like about it. And I like the way it's tuned. It's tuned very nicely. The colors are quite natural. You can go adapt if you want a little more punch to the colors. But it kind of reminds me a lot of an iPhone, to be honest with you, when it comes to the natural color. So I do like the actual quality of the panel. It's plenty sharp, it's vivid, it's a nice OLED screen, and it's super smooth. You wouldn't even know you're using 90 Hertz. You're probably going to feel like you're using 120 Hertz. It's that smooth. And with the Google software, even if you turn off smooth display, it's still smooth enough for daily use. So you can even turn this off. And while you'll definitely notice you're on 60 Hertz, you can save some battery life if you want. It's still not horrible, even with that off. But with it on, it's butter. So always on display is on this device, which is quite nice. It definitely makes it a better option, I think, than the iPhone 14 because it's cheaper, has the same size screen, has always on display, and it has a 90 Hertz panel. So it's definitely a better value than iPhone 14 at this price point for the panel, but nowhere near as bright. So Google needs to fix the brightness on this phone to really make it stand out. And I know manufacturers got to find ways to cut costs and things like that, but this is one area I don't think you have to. You can make the display a little bit brighter, just make it brighter. Just make this phone a more enjoyable experience. And one major con I don't like with this panel is that it's a Gorilla Glass panel. After this review, I'm putting my screen protector on this thing because Gorilla Glass 3 is all the way back from like 2013 or 14. This thing is like 10 years old display technology. That is way, way ridiculous for this phone. I don't like that. That just doesn't make me feel confident in its ability to stay scratch free and stuff like that. So definitely I recommend a screen protector if you pick this one up. Now when it comes to the software, the Google Pixel 7a, I love the software. It's quite simple. It's quite Googleified. That's not a word, I just made that up. It's quite Googleified, meaning that it's mostly a pure Google experience. But I quite like that because most of you are using Google services anyway. And when you do use the Google services on here, it's kind of clean. You're not having this extra Samsung stuff. You're not having this extra MIUI stuff, this extra Oxygen OS, whatever Android skin on top. It's just pure Google. So it's clean and simple. And I've actually complained before about how Apple puts all of their apps down at the bottom, cluttering up iOS settings. You'll see right here, Google's smart and puts it right here in an app section. So really like that. Also, if you scroll down here and you find system, you scroll right here to gestures, you're going to find yourself a ton of nice, neat gestures, like the ability to quick tap to start actions on the rear, quickly open the camera. You have the flip to shush, or the flip to camera for selfie. We have to flip the shush down here, and then we have the system navigation. You can go between the classic 3-button navi if you want, or stay with the current navigation, which is the swipe mechanism. Also, you do have a one-handed mode, which is nice. I really dislike when phones don't have one-handed modes because they're all so big these days. And you have tap to check phone, so you can just tap it one time and it'll go ahead and turn on. But if you have always on display on, it kind of defeats the purpose. But yeah, pretty nice. Also, in phone calls, I really like the options for blocking out robocalls and stuff like that. So if you go to spam and call screen, quite a few nice options in here. You can call screen, possibly fake numbers, first-time callers. There's a lot of spam protection in this phone. I really like that. In addition, if you go through the home screen, it's just a alphabetically organized tray right here of apps. And then you have a simple home screen with applications. The Google search bar at the bottom. And then of course, if you want to go ahead and tweak the theming, you have different color options that can really get down to the stuff you like. So if you want this color option, you could do that. Dark themes and themed icons is still in beta. Eventually that's going to get even better. So I got to say, overall, it's just a really simple, clean, fun phone to use. It's not overly, enjoyable if you want to do a lot of feature set. Like if you want to really dive into a ton of advanced features, this is probably not the phone for you. This is for people who just want a simple, easy, everyday to use device. It's probably one of the more simple Android phones you can use, and it definitely nails all the basics and all the stuff you would need in software. It also does have really long software support, and Google will support this for a long time. 3 years major, 5 years security. So you have plenty of time to use this device. And unlike some older A series, with the Tensor G2 in here, it's quite fast as well. So the Google Pixel 7a does feature the Tensor G2 chip. That's the same one you're going to find in the Pixel 7 Pro. However, what's neat about this is that it's several $100s cheaper than those phones. And also, if you want a smaller size, more pocketable size, this is a nice option as well. So really fast 5nm CPU, but it's not the fastest CPU out there. And it's not, I wish Google would have put like a new Tensor CPU on the Pixel Fold even. We're getting the same G2. Kind of lame that we didn't get like a G3 with 4nm, but right here with the G2, it's still plenty enough. And Google is optimizing software with this hardware better than most out there, including using new AI features. So definitely this phone right here, it's really fast. Let's just put it that way for everyday use. It has no lag, and it's much smoother than something like a competing Galaxy A54, if I'm being totally honest with you. Now, it does have a Mali GPU. It's a G710 MP7, so it's not going to be the fastest GPU out there, but it's still enough to play your casual games and even some high-end games here and there. You're not going to have a major issue. It's just not my preferred pick or recommendation for pure gaming. Now, one of the cons of this phone is it only has one storage option that's 128 gigs. So if you need a lot of storage, this is not the phone for you either. But definitely it's enough for probably most people that are buying this type of device. If you go over 128 gig or you're a long-term Pixel user, you're gonna have to go with cloud storage. So I really dislike that. It would have been nice to see like a 256 gig option for like $100 more or even $50 more, and then maybe a 512 gig option as well. But there's probably not a lot of people that are going to want to pay even more. So I could see why it doesn't exist, because then you could just go up to a more premium Pixel and get more storage anyway. So yeah, this is pretty low onboard storage, but enough for the general casual user. If you're going to be storing a ton of great Pixel photos, you might want to start storing most of those in the Google Cloud Storage, or it'll fill up your device. Now, when it comes to cameras, we do have a 64 megapixel plus 13 megapixel ultra wide. I can tell you that everything about this camera is purely what you would expect. Just easy to snap, great Google Pixel photos, pretty much what you expect. Like, it's gonna have that Pixel camera. There's not really, like, we've been talking about this for years, there's not really a lot to talk about. We know Pixel does really great when it comes to the processing of the photos. Now, the video on here, you also get, surprisingly, you get 4K 60, which is more of a premium feature. No 8K, but who needs that right now? Pretty much no one. 4K 60 on here on board. You also have this video stabilization where you can go between active for heavy movements, cinematic pan. There's a lot you can do there. If you go to my modes, you do have the photosphere, lens, panoramic. If we go over here, of course, night sight for nighttime photos, long exposures, portrait modes. And then on a front-facing camera, you have one of the better front-facing cameras out there. A pretty nice 95-degree wide angle right there, letting everyone get in your frame. And they do an amazing job when it comes to the, selfie quality, just getting the skin tones right. So really good in that respect. Now the video on the front is not that great. It's too close to the face, and it's not, it's 4K, but it's not 60 FPS. So I like 60 FPS for video. That's my personal take. I see 4K 60 on a lot of other cameras. So out here, I would say this is not the best for front-facing video. But overall, I took a few photos with this camera. I'm pretty happy with it. Of course, it doesn't have the longest zoom, but they made just enough to say it's better than the iPhone, which is only giving you 5, the iPhone 14. You're getting 8 right here. But we could have seen 10, honestly, on this device. 10x zoom would have been even better. But it has 8x zoom. Take a look at a few photo samples I took and decide for yourself if this is a camera that you would enjoy. And this is the front-facing video on the Google Pixel 7a. You can kind of get an idea how it looks, how it performs, and audio coming again directly from the phone itself. Let me know your thoughts on the front-facing video quality of the Google Pixel 7a. Now, battery life on this phone is quite good. Like, it's a full day easily, and then some. If you're busy, if you're using it a lot, it's just one day. If you're going to put on extreme battery mode, 2 or 3, like Google is claiming, but you got to really use that battery saving mode, which I'm not using. So for me, this is an easy all day phone. The battery lasts all day easily. Now, it doesn't charge super fast though. It does have 20 watts, so you're going to be waiting about an hour, get this thing fully charged. This is not going to be blazing fast there, so that's a cut they made. You're not getting the fastest charging in the world, but that'll preserve that battery for the long term. And a couple other things I wanted to mention. In-display fingerprint sensor is optical, but it's also very reliable. So I can definitely recommend this. You can also unlock this phone via your face, but I don't think everybody's going to do that because it's not super secure to do that, but that option is available for you. I also wanted to mention that this phone does have really clear calling. It can block out some background noises, and it also has Bluetooth 5.3 and Wi-Fi 6E. So this phone is really quite solid and really made to go the distance. So at the end of the day, this phone really does have quite a few strengths to it. There are a few cons that we mentioned throughout this video, but it has solid speakers with stereo sound. On board, we didn't really talk much about that, but it has an in-display fingerprint sensor, a smooth panel, really good cameras, long battery. This phone nails the basics. And for me, this phone is about a 7.5 out of 10. It really doesn't have anything that blows me away, but it brings the A line up to the modern Pixel look, giving you some nice color options, including the exclusive coral, which I didn't really want because it's not red, but it's nice for people like coral. I think this phone is for people who want a great Android phone that doesn't sacrifice a lot of what you require a smartphone to do. Like, it does pretty much everything you need a smartphone to do, but it really isn't the best in any area. For example, it doesn't have the best display out there, but it's a really good display. It's not the fastest phone out there, but it's a really fast, reliable software experience. Has a rock solid design, but some people would argue it's not the best looking phone out there either. Yeah, it just does everything. It shines in every area good enough that really makes it it's a really good overall total value package. And for that reason, I totally recommend it and I love it. I actually do love this device. It's really darn good. Would I pick it over Poco F5 Pro, Poco F5, A54? Not sure about that. Would have to make a comparison video on that. And I will be doing some speed tests to see how quick the Pixel 8 does perform in comparison to some other premium devices. So let me know which ones you want to see down below. If you picked up a Pixel 7a or you plan on it or you have any more questions, go ahead and drop those questions down below in the comment section of this video. We'll have people helping you out there, as well as I will try to reply as many comments as I can. And I'll catch you all in the very next episode. Thank you very much for watching. Nick here. Be sure to be well and peace.